Good evening, good afternoon, wheresoever you are. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I am the West African correspondent, Amara. Welcome to live news update on the official page of Focus on Liberia. I am here to give you basically the latest news on the continent, things that affect Africa, news that are very important to the development of the continent. On a daily basis, we have emerging news on the continent. We have things that normally happen, maybe some things that serve as a shock about to Africa as a continent. Focus on Liberia uses this particular page to ensure that we come with you with all the latest news, things that actually affect the continent, things that we need to know, things that are so important, and things that really matter to what the continent does. When you watch at Africa from the length and breadth, I think we are really having some issues that affect our progress as a continent. Just to give you maybe a brief rundown into Africa, if you start from the southern part of Africa, you go to the northern part of Africa, that is from the length and breadth of Africa, I think we have systematically constructed problem. Even when you look at around the Atlantic Ocean, like the Indian, maybe the French nation, of course, which somehow occupied by the Indians, like Madagascar, you will see problems are definitely happening. Just look like South Africa. If you watch at South Africa suffered a lot during the apartheid. After Nelson Mandela came in, maybe he set a spectacular record, but some of the critics will definitely tell you that there is no justice, there is no reconciliation without justice, and if justice must be served, then those who committed the greatest crime or who perpetrated crimes on the society should definitely be punished. But he came in with his reconciliation mentality, and I think all of those things we are solved. But that did not actually solve the problem, because maybe he came and preached reconciliation policy, acceptance, and in short, let bygone be bygone. But all the things that the apartheid created, the discrimination, the land grabbing policy, the stereotype policy, the prejudice policy definitely left. This is why even the society that he left behind, most of those who inherited the leadership from him tend to be absolutely corrupt. Because we watch at it from the apartheid regime, all those who corrupted the society we are never punished. So when Nelson Mandela left, like you think about like Thabo Mbeki, saw the like of Jacob Zuma, even when Cyril Ramaphosa in, of course his wife, the wife of the former president, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, attempted to contest, but she failed, and the orator and charismatic Cyril Ramaphosa took over. But I think because no punishment was meted out to those who committed the greatest responsibility in that part of the country, still people remain to continue the same policy. Look at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, since 1986, Mugabe took over. Nothing good has actually happened. He introduced land grabbing policy. I normally say, I always say, Robert Mugabe was a very good leader, but you have different style of leaders or different type of leader. Maybe he was a revolutionary leader, but he was not a leader who can come with reconciliation into Zimbabwe. That was why his leadership failed. You watch like Angola, Angola is stable. But even when after Eduardo dos Santos left, we have seen why Isabel dos Santos and others have been arrested by the man who succeeded Jose Eduardo dos Santos because of the corrupt nature of his people. Look at Aliuma Bongo, who succeeded his father. And that particular family has ruled Gabon for 55 good years, and yet he's contesting another election that may take him to lead the country for up to 60 good years. As that's family, it's unfortunate that the Gabonese do not even know any other people who can lead Gabon with the exception of the Umar Bongo. Look at Somalia. Somalia, since the 1990s, they have been fighting Al-Shabaab or other places. It has definitely been destabilized. Of course, that have a spilling effect in places like Mozambique. Mozambique used to be very peaceful, but the Degalo region now is now facing problem because of the activities that are definitely happening to Mozambique, into Somalia. Even closer, Kenya, we are seeing how Raila Odinga is organizing people against the William Ruto elected government. And by default, Kenya is also having problem because of the existence of Al-Shabaab in Somalia. They have never been peaceful. You get into the Horn of Africa again, because Somalia is still in East Africa. Watch at even like Ethiopia. Since Abiy Ahmed took over in Ethiopia, in 2020, he was accoladed, given a huge accolation because of his renewal of peace with places like Ethiopia, Eritrea. And when Asaya Equity is the only man known into Eritrea with a state religion, and nobody else is allowed to contest election. Journalism is not any type of profession that is encouraged. Those who criticize the government will be like, you can even be arrested by police that you do not know the type of uniform that they wore, nor will you know the station that you are being sent to. People have been lost into Eritrea, the capital city Asmara, for almost for life. So Eritrea is definitely not peaceful because of the autocratic leadership style of Asaya Equity. Then in Ethiopia, of course, the Amara region fought bitter war against the Tigray in correspondence with the Ethiopian central government. Abiy Ahmed, the dastardly attitude into that particular area left some heel marks that are not actually good to be called heel marks. So look at Democratic Republic of Congo. Since the fall of Mobutu, we saw like the coming of Laurent Kabila, and then Joseph Kabila. After Joseph Kabila, his son. After Joseph Kabila, we are seeing this man, Etienne Tshisekedi. The son of Etienne Tshisekedi is into power. But the Catholic over there are so powerful, their religious mentality, though, imposing in government on the country. Manti Fayula actually won the election on Agebule, but because he does not have the support of the Catholics, so they went up to ensure that the man called Etienne Tshisekedi, Felix Tshisekedi, was actually installed into power. So these are some of the trouble. You watch at the Republic of Congo. Since Denis Nguesso has been in power in the early 1980s, he's still there. And he contesting election and winning. Civil society, human rights institutions, other groups have been suppressed. You come into places like Rwanda. Paul Kagame won election in 1994 after the end of he won the election after finally ending the genocide in 1996. Since then, everybody who knows Rwanda will only tell you about Paul Kagame. But arguably, he's developing the country. And being Kigali is one of the best cities in Africa, and he has managed to empower women. But his empowerment of women comes with deprivation of other people not to contest election. And even women who are contesting against a person are normally sent into prison, tortured. So I don't know, he's a dictator, and based on the latest constitution that gave him power, he even has the power to be in power until 2037. But based on latest information emanating from the country, I think he has the intention to empower a woman who will succeed in. But these are people who carefully build a system around themselves. So even when they are out of the system, they still continue removing the system, because he has placed Rwanda under his whims and caprices. Anybody who wants to actually retain the leadership of Rwanda must have his absolute support, or else you may risk not to have anything. So you come into places like North Africa after the Arab uprising we have seen in 2011 that was greatly facilitated by the Obama-led government. Tunisia, of course, is stable, is the only uninterrupted democracy, but now Kais Saied came into power in 2019, suspended the constitution, sacked the parliament, appointed yes men into his cabinet, and also handicapped the judiciary. He is so powerful, demonstration against a person, he's full of hate speeches, empowered his brothers who are Tunisians against sub-Saharan African countries. Then you see Morocco is having serious problem with people in the Sahara, in the Western Sahara. They do not want to grant them independence. And stupidly enough, in the 1980s, Morocco even applied for them to join the EU, which of course the EU deprived or denied them joining the EU, because by default they are on the continent of Africa and they should definitely join the EU in case they want to have an organization that is an international one, although they are part of the Arab League. Egypt, of course, after the fall of Hosni Mubarak, Mohamed Morsi took over, head of the Muslim Brotherhood. He was being sacked because of his Sharia mentality. We saw Al-Fattah al-Sisi taking over. And now he has the power to continue, even to lead Egypt for life. America is still supporting him. So that is so sad into the country. And when you check into places like Mali have over 3 coups d'etats. Burkina Faso, the Burkina have series of coups d'etat. Mali, beginning from Amadou Toumani Touré, you come to Abubakar Keita and others, all of them have definitely been overthrown. Of course, in Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo won election twice. When he lost the final one, created war, he was indicted into the Hague. He and Simon Gbagbo, they have been released. They went back, but Alassane Ouattara, after winning the election, his time expired, committed a constitutional coup, installed himself into power, and people are just disgruntled. In Burkina Faso, several coups d'etats have taken place. Neighboring Guinea definitely suffered coup d'etat when Alpha Condé involved himself into politics by violating the constitution. Since the dude was arrested, he's still in the hand of the junta boys, and nobody knows what they intend to do with the Mandinka. In Chad, Idris Deby lost his life in 2020 on the war against some of those rebels. His son, Mohamed Infantino Deby, took over power, and nobody knows the intention, what he wants to do. And Chad is also today part of our top news story. So basically, when you watch at Africa is, of course, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, we all know our trouble. From the 10-year civil war, Guinea also has a spilling effect on it. Over 50,000 people were killed into Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone experienced one of the brutal civil war. It's because of that war that Chastelo is today in jail. Liberia ended her own civil war, but she decided to encourage rebels to still continue leading the country. That is why the Truth and Reconciliation Commission suggestions or recommendations were never implemented, since rebels are the one on the hem of appeal. You get a watch like from Chastelo was a rebel. You come to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she also contributed to the war into Liberia. Then you see the current government being led by Joya Howard Taylor, is the wife of the former president, who was the first lady. Massively or tangibly, she had some or impact on the continent. You have seen the like of Prince Yaman Johnson and others being senators into Liberia. So how do you think the TRC's recommendation can definitely take place when those key actors into the war of Liberia are still key players into the current dispensation of Liberia? It is very difficult. So Africa, from length and breadth, is a very serious problem. I think we need to deal with certain things. So welcome to Focus on Liberia. Finally, today, let's see what we need to handle today, and we shall see our latest problem. So let's see. First, we start with Chad. In Chad, Chad lays groundwork for key referendum. After the fall of after the fall of Idris Deby, who was actually the leader of Chad, Idris Deby was killed on the war front, maybe by unknown soldiers. But some rumor are actually claiming that maybe his son could have facilitated the death of his father for him to take over the leadership of the country. Because what happened, he died into a mysterious circumstances. Those who killed his fathers, some of them were apprehended, but according to unconfirmed rumor, the main actors who actually facilitated the killing of his father were apprehended on the spot, and they were taken to N'Djamena, killed by Mohamed Infantino Deby, as a means of preventing them saying anything. Because had they been kept in prison, maybe one day anything could have happened and they would have voiced out what actually happened. And Interestingly enough, this man has also gone ahead to grant a pardon or a presidential pardon to all those whom he claimed involved into the death of his father. He said he wants to come with reconciliation into the country and to ensure that a child does not relegate himself into a position that everybody may be thinking that child is in a chaotic situation or they are warlike. But what is happening today in Nigeria and Cameroon also have concomitant effect in Chad. And they have passed now today, they have adopted a constitution. And that constitution gives the president, who is actually the supreme leader of Chad, according to the way he called himself, Mohamed Patino Debi. He has now the power to dismiss his cabinet without consulting anyone and to appoint anyone he thinks is necessary to rule in his company. Then at the same time, he has the absolute right to make certain recommendations on how the constitution of the country should be reframed. The human rights institutions and other opposition leaders are claiming that this is an assault or a plot on the constitution, and they will definitely not allow the said constitution to come into existence. But I think he did the right way, or he did it the right way, by first conducting the referendum, and 97% of those who participated in the election voted yes for the referendum, meaning he has the constitutional mandate to implement anything. But it was only 37% of the total population of Chad that actually participated into the vote. So when you watch at it, maybe it's a kind of, it was a fraudulent election that was conducted. But since it was conducted under the purview of Infantino, I think today he has everything it takes. And to lead places like Chad, even when you're a president, if you do not have the backing of the military, you could be killed at any time. And he is a military person, and even Idris Deby was also another military man. So we are now seeing a very corrupt system in place into Chad, and there is no means for an election to be conducted early. But they are claiming that maybe by December this year, election will be conducted. But that election definitely will be conducted by the military, and there is a high possibility that if Infantino Debi or Mohamed Infantino Debi may retire from the military before December and decide to contest the election as a civilian. But since he is already on the helm of affairs in Chad, I think he will have that undue advantage to ensure that he installs himself in power with or without the consent of the other people, especially those who are key factors in the Chadian society. So let's see, outrage in Nigeria over Lagos mass burial. We all witnessed have heard and we saw what happened in 2020 in Nigeria when ENSA, those police, anti-terrorist police, we are actually hired to ensure that the fight against the growing crime into the Nigerian society. But they became so brutal, they started using lethal force against the civilians. So in the Lekki community, there was serious demonstration against them, which resulted into the death of 103 civilians. Human rights institutions and other independent bodies claimed that the police used lethal force against those people, and it resulted into a chaotic scene, and a lot of people will have died. In fact, they are saying that even the 103 number they are claiming is only an official number, but people actually died beyond that search number. But the government has denied it and described the people's behavior so dastardly. And they are even saying that most of those bodies that we have picked up on the street after the ENSA demonstration are not actually linked with the demonstration itself. Rather, it was some adolescent violence that actually took place in certain key communities, and this was something usual. But it has been over 2 years, nobody came out to claim the body. So the government have decided to bury the bodies or the corpses in the form of mass burial, and it has given $100,000 for the burial to be conducted. So people are now claiming that this is an outrageous act and the government should have investigated the case and ensure that those who are actually involved into the killing of innocent civilians should be punished. But the NSA police, who are actually the anti-terror police, have actually been dismissed according to the Nigerian government. And the layman or those who demonstrated against the so-called police, we actually are waiting for the prosecution of those guys. Unfortunately, nothing like that was taking place. So I think they still feel that maybe the end did not justify the means, because if those people would have been caught in prison, they would have thought that anyway, whatsoever thing that they have done have actually made the desired effect. Unfortunately, things like that are not happening. So it's a very sad event, and Nigeria as a big brother country, Nigeria, I mean Africa, has never lived up to expectation. So let's see, Ghanaian minister arrested over SIM cash scandal. We saw yesterday, Sunday, a health minister in Nigeria and in Ghana was actually arrested with $1 million and 300,000 euro. But that was on the another corruption and corruption related cases. According to this, she's the Minister of Health and Water Service or Water Resources into Ghana. I think they combined their ministry, the head ministry with the Water Resources ministries combined together. And the person who was actually heading this particular ministry was a female. Sometimes we think that females are uncorrupt, but most of the huge scandal involved into certain countries are actually entangled around females. And maybe this was just something that everybody thought that if you give a woman power, maybe she can live to sanitize the system and live up to expectation. Unfortunately, these things have never come to pass. And although nobody is saying that women are incorruptible, but there are times we expect them maybe to perform on high standards, especially when it comes to corruption-related cases, because only few of them are actually given the opportunity to act into certain workplace or socially connected roles. But this lady was actually arrested yesterday, and on Saturday she actually resigned. Her securities or maids within the home we are alleged to have taken $1 million, 300,000 euro, and other valuables. They went and complained to the police. So it became a public outcry. People are wondering, Ghana is actually suffering from economic setback. There is inflation 42%, and staple food is actually on the increase. Government have taken loan from IMF, and they have unsubsidized most of the things that they subsidize, like fuel and other things. Now the layman even live on less than $1 a day. So how come a minister could be found with such huge amount of cash into her home? So the President Nana Akufo-Addo actually accepted her resignation, but there was actually a demand for the Office of the Public Prosecution to apprehend this so-called minister so that she can go and give an account. But there are a lot of, in fact, everything about the story is so ambiguous, so nobody can actually ascertain what happened. But luckily enough, the Office of the Public Prosecution has swiftly moved to ensure that this minister is arrested, and she's helping the police. She's cooperating actually with the police to ensure that the case is being swiftly investigated, and all those who are related to this scandal are going to be arrested. So this is what happens normally in Africa. When they entrust people with power, they tend to abuse it. They say absolute power corrupts system. Absolutely. It's a very sad event, and we are waiting to see what will definitely happen with the so-called minister. So let's come into Egypt related case with Sudan. We are suffering, we are dying without food, claims some refugees who actually found themselves into Cairo, Egypt. They are there. The 3-month war between Abuham and Dagalo has actually killed over 300,000 people into Sudan. Some women have been raped, and there is no normal activities going on into northern Sudan. And those who have fled the country are actually suffering in neighboring country. They are calling upon their brothers and sisters to end the war. But those refugees actually have lost hope. Some of them are hopeless, they are homeless, and some of them do not even think and feel that the war may end in the shortest possible time, because of the appetites of the war, of those who fight in the war. They still have a very strong appetite to continue fighting the war, and both of them are vowing to arrest each other and ensure that the one person is being brought to book. We are seeing powerful men under this guy Omar al-Bashir, who was overthrown in 2019, being released from prison, and they are also participating into the war. The Janjaweed militia mentality is definitely coming on. We are seeing the Russian mentality through the Wanga military are also involved into the conflict. So things like that may definitely not help to maybe stabilize the country. So all of those events are happening, and Africa is now maybe too weak to negotiate a successful peace. So I was wondering why the like of Cyril Ramaphosa and the president of Kenya and a few other countries went to act flamboyantly into Russia, saying they want to bring peace. Let them forget about going or making peace between Ukraine and Russia. They should definitely come with peace first on the continent. If they cannot harmonize, try to create a well-structured continent. It's Africa, only 55 countries, so small, very few population on the continent. If they cannot successfully govern or prevent war, what did they actually go to do over there? Maybe it was just a flamboyant act, and also it did not end well because those people never gave any consent to them, and there was nothing good taken. I think they only went to maybe lavish our money foolishly, and whatsoever thing that have been done maybe was not done in the interest of the continent, and we will not live to continue maybe enjoying certain facilities like that. Everything that is happening to the only continent may not help to progress this continent from us, because from the length and breadth of Africa, we have problematic situations. Some of them are created by our leaders. Some of them are actually happening on the continent because of external consequences. Some of them are just like happening on the continent as an external consequences, or some of them are actually happening on the continent because of the type of leadership that we have. So finally, let's come into Somalia. Into Somalia, we yesterday there was a news in Somalia that 25 soldiers were actually killed by somebody who pretended to be part of the Somalian military. He went into a gathering of army and blasted himself. 25 people were actually killed through a suicide bomb. However, Al-Shabaab is claiming that 103 soldiers were injured. We lost their life, including 73 soldiers lost their life, including 103 injured. But they are only saying that it was only 13 people. So nobody knows exactly what happened or who is speaking the truth. The Somalian government has never come out publicly to tell the people what really happened. However, Al-Shabaab is now claiming, and those news have been published, and they are even claiming that if the central government, supported by the international community that is based in Mogadishu, Somalia, is thinking that the life of the Al-Shabaab is now something that has come to an end. Maybe they could be fantastically daydreaming, but they are still alive and they have the ability to cripple the Somalian government, and all what they need is to establish a Sharia state, with or without the international consent. And it is because of that same dastardly attitude taking place into Somalia that we are seeing now. We have Somaliland and Somalia. Somaliland capital city is Hargeisa, it's a self-independent land, but they are also facing famine and other problems are definitely into the country, because they may not be facing war, but they do not have strong support from the international community, and they are having some amount of challenges in terms of famine, diseases, and other related problems. Although few amount of suicide have been recorded on the continent, but they do not actually have a perpetual, strong, and determined enemy like the like of Somalia is definitely facing. So we come into Mali. Mali adopt a new constitution. Ghana now has the right to appoint and sack any minister that he thinks, and he will definitely end up to run as president, as in charge, when their election will be conducted next year. They are claiming that Ghana does not intend to leave power, and his only intention is to ensure that he creates a type of constitution that will enable him to grab power at any time. And in Somalia, like Chad, if you do not have the support of the military, even when you are elected president, you will not see your term ending. They can do anything because the country is faced by a series of problems which is related to armed conflict. And the military thinks and feel that they are the only people who can definitely rule the country successfully. And even most of the time, the civilian will tell you that if it is civilian that is ruling a state like that, they will never be peaceful. But when the military comes in, they have the ability to take over the country, maybe and lead it successfully. But since this military got taken over after the overthrow of IBK of Ibrahim Abubakar, unfortunately, they have not been successful. Or they have not successfully battled people like the Traore rebels and IC and other bandits on the in the country, and they have even asked the French to leave. They have now invited the Russian to take over the country, but Russia and the Russian, especially the Wangant military, including the Mali army, have definitely been accused of carrying out massive civilian torture or abuse of right, rape, and whatsoever thing. But they have definitely denied this thing, and they think and feel that it's just a ploy to maybe tarnish the Malian government name internationally, but they will not entertain French. In that part, no French soldier will be entertained into the country, and they will have the ability to govern themselves without even the French support. And France is now withdrawing her troops from the country, and also the UN has been asked to withdraw their troops from the country, and they want to only see the presence of the Russian military in their country, and they hope that the cooperation with the Russian will yield positive dividend. Finally, we see a soldier shot dead, 13 in DRC Congo, and fled. According to the news, a soldier shot dead 13 people on the funeral yesterday. He's actually one of the soldiers being deployed in the eastern DRC Congo, fighting against the M23 rebels. But they said his son got sick in the village of Nyankwavu. He lost his life, and the soldier was actually planning to attend his son's burial. Unfortunately, his wife ordered the burial to take place without his consent. On his arrival, he met the process was going on. He said he became annoyed and shot dead 13 people on the funeral, and also got other injured. He fled from the scene because these are all just like maybe related stories to what happened, but nobody knows exactly what happened. But his wife is among the casualties. Luckily enough, she survived, but not going legally to his military bosses, and they promised to ensure that they investigate the case carefully, and the man will be definitely brought to book to ensure that incidents like that never repeat itself. It was a very sad event, and people actually gather to ensure that somebody is being buried in that sad phase. 13 of them actually lost their life, which was so difficult to handle in a small village. Maybe it happened unexpectedly, but there was no police, no other person to even maybe prevent the incident from happening, because it was organized into maybe one of the smallest village into DRC Congo, where the military was not found to even provide security coverage, and nobody actually knew that such incident like that could have actually happened. And since he opened fire, or he started firing on everybody that was there, they said everybody just rushed to maybe rescue themselves from the bullet, and by the time he fled the scene, nobody knows which route he exactly took. But the military are saying that, or the military is definitely saying that they will ensure that the man is being arrested and face the music. Thank you. It's been Edward Amara, Focus on Nigeria, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development of the continent. Join me same time on Wednesday to bring back to you any other further story that may interest the program, or also that will be worth of listening. Thank you. Good night.